to start a couple minutes late. We're having some technical difficulties. Okay.
The Speaker of the Assembly.
Speaker
of the Assembly. That's who Al.
Okay, but
No, I just can't get clarification because she said yes, Speaker. Right? Brendan is how you say it? Yeah. And
folks, if we can get everyone to come in and take their seat, we're going to start in about 2 minutes.
WRCOG.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the Western Riverside Council of Governments Executive Committee to order. Janice, roll call, please.
Certainly. City of Banning. City of Calamasa. City of Canyon Lake. City of Corona.
Here.
City of Eastvale.
Here.
City of Hemet. Here. City of Europa Valley. Here. City of Lake Elsinore.
Here.
City of Menifee. Here. City of Moreno Valley.
Here.
City of Murrieta.
Here.
Thank you. City of Norco. City of Paris. Thank you. City of Riverside. City of San Jacinto. City of Temecula. City of Wildomar.
Here.
County of Riverside District 1. County of Riverside District 2. County of Riverside District 3. Me too, sir. County of Riverside District 5.
Definitely here.
Thank you. Eastern Municipal Water District. Western Municipal Water District. Morongo Band of Mission Indians. Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. WRCOG TAC Chair. That concludes roll call, and we do have quorum.
Thank you. I'm a little concerned with the direction we're going today, but I'd like to ask the Mayor of Temecula to lead us in the pledge, please.
Thank you. If you rise with me, face the flag, recognize the principles for which it stands, and say with me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I don't have any cards for public comment. Do you have anything?
I have none, sir.
Okay. Okay, next we have our consent calendar. We have items A through H, and actually we're going to pull item G just for comments up here. So all items on the consent calendar are approved in one motion unless a member of the body or a member of the public requests action on an item. And I don't see any requests. So, yes, Laura.
Need a motion?
Is it on? Oh, there we
have
go.
a-
I just needed to abstain on the minutes,
Okay.
please.
Please note Eureka Valley is abstaining on the minutes. So I'll take a motion.
Second.
Motion by the second vice chair and a motion by or the two of them. Please vote.
Deborah. Councilman Franklin beat me. Second vice chair.
She's pretty quick, sir.
Morongo Band of Mission Indians, please vote. Thank you, sir.
And that motion passes 22-0. Thank you. Brenda from the Water District.
Yeah, he's ready. Here he comes.
Get this all done. Here, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment on 5G. It was brought to my attention today by my colleague, Al Lopez, who sits on my board at Western Municipal Water District, was so kind as to run into the Speaker of the Assembly this weekend at a conference and personally hand-delivered a copy of the staff report in opposition of this item today. So that was very nice that he had a very one-on-one conversation with him to deliver that. So I just wanted to share that on behalf of my colleague.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll take a motion then.
Motion to approve.
And a second by Murrieta. Please vote. Okay, that motion passes 22-0. Okay, next, under reports and discussions, we have a presentation from Congressman Mark Takano, and let me just do a quick introduction. Congressman Mark Takano is our U.S. representative for California 41st Congressional District, which serves the communities of Riverside, Moreno Valley, Eureka Valley, Paris, and the unincorporated area of the county. Congressman Takano was elected in 2013 after serving on the Riverside Community College Board of Trustees. He's a Riverside native and a teacher for more than 20 years. Congressman Takano is focused on issues of education reform, jobs and the economy, immigration, health care, and energy, and the environment, and many other priorities. That's a lot of priorities, sir. So, Congressman Takano.
Members of the Western Council of Governments in Riverside. I was going to say good morning, but because it feels like morning, it's kind of cold outside, but it's afternoon. But we had some much-needed rain, but I wanted to take a few moments to speak with you about what I'm working on in Congress. Well, first of all, I understand that you were interested in the poverty report that my office issued. My own staff produced a report on poverty in Riverside County late last year, and I've been working on specific proposals to address the findings. And And really, we're looking to try and help middle-class families or Riverside families gain a foothold in the middle class. And some of the proposals that we have come up with include introducing a $15 an hour minimum wage. I don't believe that anyone who's working full-time should be living in poverty. And a $15 minimum wage will do a lot to lift people out of poverty, and so that they're not working full-time and also having to live in poverty. Secondly, fully funding SNAP and Section 8 housing so that our safety net programs are available to all who are eligible. Currently, we have, as you know, a waiting list for people who are looking for Section 8 housing. And really what we found, we did a model, we modeled a single parent and two kids, and the parent, we assumed that the parent was earning the current minimum wage, working full-time. And often what made the difference between that kind of family being able to make ends meet or fall behind and maybe have to rely on a payday lender to meet their expenses was the cost of housing, was the subsidy that was offered under Section 8. So if everybody just was able to be able to get that subsidy, that would make a huge difference in terms of addressing the 25% poverty rate we have in our county. Thirdly, I also believe that offering all working families paid medical leave. If you can imagine what it means to be that same single parent and have one of your two children get sick and having to take time off of work and not be paid to take care of that sick child, you're having to make a very, I think, an awesome choice there, a terrible choice, which is either lose pay or not take care of the kid. So I think we often fail to recognize really that being poor is very stressful. It's not often how it's often portrayed. There's been a survey by I think the Pew Charitable Trust, which showed that a lot of people don't really have an accurate, I think, picture of what it means to be living in poverty in our country. They assume it's easy. They assume that they're beneficiaries of the social safety net, which is often inadequate. Well, these proposals aren't really going anywhere in this Congress, and they're facing even some stiff resistance. But there's one program that I see moving forward, one proposal that's moving forward that I think will get done in some form, and that's expanding the Federal Communication Commission's Lifeline program. And that, by making some improvements in this program, I think we have stand a great chance of closing the digital divide. When I was a teacher, teaching in Rialto, where 90% of the student body at the school I attended was on free or reduced school lunch, there were some issues with assigning homework, which required research on the internet. Many students could gain access through their cell phones, but as you know, there are data limits on that, and that's fundamentally a different sort of experience than being able to be connected to broadband from a computer. And if you don't have that access at home, there's a disadvantage. And think also about the number of employers now who require applications to be done online, or even signing up for Medi-Cal. Much of that is done through computers and the internet. Well, I want to remind you that Lifeline was a program that was launched by President Reagan, and it started as a discount on monthly telephone service, and then it was updated under President George W. Bush to allow low-income families to use that credit on prepaid mobile service. Contrary to a lot of lore, the prepaid mobile service and the credit that comes from that was not originally started by President Obama. It's not what's known as the Obama phone, but really was started under George W. Bush. What the FCC is proposing to do is to update the Lifeline program to include meaningful access to broadband. And so a family could choose to use the subsidy for the credit for access to a landline, prepaid mobile service, or, not in addition to, or access to broadband. And I think that would be a huge enhancement. I think we should think of access to broadband much in the same light as we originally thought of the telephone. It's really kind of necessary these days, a necessary part of participating in today's economy. So I led a letter along with 80 other members of the House Representatives to voice support for this FCC proposal and to offer them guidance. And specifically, the guidance was to make sure that the subsidy, that we set some minimum standards on what access to broadband means, which is about 25. We call for a standard of 25 megs per second. But we know that there needs to be some flexibility, and so we also incorporated some flexibility in that standard. We know that some rural parts of our country won't have that capacity, but can come close, and we know it's definitely possible. We held a briefing last week in Washington for staffers on the Hill, and expanding Lifeline will be a critical step forward to providing young people with the equal opportunities to succeed in the classroom. It will create greater efficiencies in our labor markets because it means that people will be able to find jobs more efficiently. We know that job searches are far more effective when people have access to broadband. And I remind you about the health implications as well. People will be able to access health insurance, and so much more about health management, managing one's health will come through being able to be connected through broadband. If you're interested in hearing more about closing the achievement gap between high and low income young people and students, I highly recommend that you all attend the talk being given this Friday by Professor Robert Putnam. I see Mayor Bailey nodding his head. He was the Harvard professor who wrote an essay that was later extended to a book called Bowling Alone. He kind of originated this idea of social assets in a community, and he's written a new book called Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis. And what he talks about in this book is the growing opportunity gap between very low-income kids and middle-class kids. And I encourage you to come. It's really he's a great professor. He was actually my professor at Harvard, and in that seminar was also the former Deputy Defense Secretary Michelle Flournoy. And so, but I urge you strongly to come. He's one of our great American social scientists and thinkers. Finally, I want to touch on policy related to the drought and our challenges with our water supplies in California. I did send a letter to the State Water Resources Board on January 1, highlighting the fact that the proposed water cuts of 25% disproportionately affect Southern California water districts. In other words, our water districts and our communities are being punished for doing a good thing, which was we started conserving early and aggressively so. Other water districts throughout the state have not implemented conservation plans as aggressively as we have, but yet we're being held to a same standard. In this case, equal does not mean fair. Equal means disproportionate burden being placed on us here in Southern California where the weather is hotter and the population has grown. And so, I've let it be known, how I feel about it, and I wanted to make sure that they understood, that the Water Resources Board understood that we've worked very, very hard to close, to address the needs of the state and our customers, our water districts have, in other words. I've continued to be an advocate for the Water Smart program. In fact, I just signed an appropriations letter to increase funding for this program that works with state and local governments to pursue a sustainable water supply. And I remain in close touch with the water districts and water agencies, but ultimately, much of this issue will be decided by the state. That's basically my report to you.
Well, thank you, Congressman. We have time for questions, if any in the body.
If there's any questions. All right.
We do have one.
Okay, great.
Calamasa. We are a little bit of a challenge with our
Yes,
budget sometimes.
Congressman, you mentioned something about this program to give people of limited means access to the internet?
Yes, it would basically be, currently they have access to a credit. The Lifeline program, as it currently exists, there's a fee that's actually collected from all of our phone bills now. And it goes into a fund someplace, and people who are eligible for it can apply for it, and they can access a landline. And that exists now. That Lifeline program was updated under George W. Bush to include a prepaid cell phone. So you didn't have to be tied to acquiring a landline with that credit. You can also get a prepaid cell phone. The FCC is considering expanding the program so that people have a choice to use that credit toward broadband access. It's not that they can get all three. It would be that they could access broadband through an update of the program. So it's not any additional taxes or fees or anything like that. It's just the current use.
But from what I understand, we've already got that access. We spend a lot of money in our public libraries to have those computers there for people that can come in and access the internet anytime they need or whatever. And so it's like we're competing. We're putting stuff out there for them that they already have.
Well, it's good that cities have done that. And I don't know is your library open 24/7?
I mean, if you're talking about schoolwork, though, I mean, do they need to be up at 2 in the morning? Like I say, at what point do people have to start actually earning what they have? I don't know if that's such an impediment for their success.
Well, let's just look at it this way. I mean, I think we all could see that connecting people through telephone service, say, in the 80s, making sure that low-income people at least had basic telephone service or could apply a credit to it, that was a meaningful connection to the economy. I mean, that emergency services, any number of things a senior citizen needed to connect to, we could see that. We could see that the advance in technology through cell phones said, well, isn't just landlines may not be the most practical or efficient way to do that. Prepaid cell phone services is an improvement on that. For about the same level of credit, nothing more than what you would be spending on a landline or a cell phone, we're saying, well, you could acquire something like voice over IP, which would accomplish the same thing as a landline, right? But yet, that one broadband access for that family, we're not talking about broadband access for every single member of the family, we're talking about a household. That household, what would be the utility of that? One, for low-income folks, they are able to search for jobs more quickly, apply for jobs. Even a lot of employers are actually, that's the first point of entry. Secondly, applying for health insurance is a lot easier than, theoretically they could go to the library, but I think we have a far more efficient economy if we connected far more of our people to broadband access. And third thing is, I can tell you as a teacher of 180 students at a time, just having every one of those students have some access that goes beyond their own. It's just, so much of there's a great percentage of assignments that teachers assign. I would assume that people have access to internet service.
Yeah, and I would like to see too, along with any increase in all these giveaways or goodies or whatever, we need to have more companies come to California, and we're making it more and more difficult with each one of these things we pile on. And so they can apply for all the jobs they want, but if they're not there, it's not going to do any good.
Well, in fact, there are many. That's a separate conversation about the workforce challenges we have. And when I did do 100 visits to 100 businesses in my first year, the complaint I actually received from some of our small manufacturers is the lack of skill levels. That they had jobs ready to go, they were planning to ramp up, but they were concerned about the number of available people in the workforce. So there's a skills gap going on here as well. So, I mean, there's talk about, I do think that there is a sense that California could do a better job of being sensitive to the needs of business owners, but there's also a sense that we have jobs available that are going unfilled. And think about how much more efficient the job search would be if people had access, more people had access to broadband in a convenient way.
I think more companies would love to come here, and if we had lower regulation and taxes and stuff, I think they'd much rather have us come in our overalls and stuff and apply in person. We're putting the cart ahead of the horse, but I digress. But
No. I mean, I don't disagree that there's some stuff we can be doing with state and local. I heard a lot of concerns about state regulation and local regulation, and so I don't dispute a lot of what you're saying. I don't think we necessarily disagree.
We have a couple more, sir.
Sure.
Western Municipal Water District.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments in regard to your support for the water districts and the local agencies. And for many years, you are correct. The water agencies around here are well ahead of the curve, and we've provided a lot of resources and a lot of cutback from our constituency. So I appreciate your comments on that. But I wondered if you had a comment in regard to this recent development that has really been a burr under my saddle. And it has to do with the recent development from the federal courts in regard to the Morgan Hill concerned parents against the California Department of Education and the release of private student information dating back to 2008. As a parent myself, and my understanding from reading all of the news articles that I have, the information release is that Morgan Hill is contending that special needs students of a certain district, I believe it was Santa Clara County up in the Northern California area, has not made it accessible to special needs students to be able to obtain classes that they might need for whatever their needs are. And that the court has in turn released up to 10 million students private information, including their social security numbers, medical information that the school district has obtained, and a variety of other things. And as a parent myself, who's never had a child, who's been in search of special needs classes, I find this absolutely ridiculous. Mm-hmm. My children have turned in medical release forms and authorizations from their doctors just to participate in sports activities and those things to be cleared. So that district has that information available, and I'm appalled that the federal district court would think that this would be a reasonable request of information to be released. I just wanted to know if you had an opinion on that and if you were taking any type of action.
This is the first I've heard of this. I haven't, reviewed the case or know the facts of the case. So you're saying the federal court has made a decision to? Yes,
there was an order that was done back in February. I guess it's been changed a couple of times. I'm looking at a news article here that was released by my particular school district that was posted just today. Federal District Court Judge Kimberly Mueller was the judge who issued the order for the release of the information, and the order has since been modified, but the concern is that at any time she could again amend this order for the release. and it dates back to student information obtained by the schools, by the California Department of Education, all the way back to 2008.
Well, I will assume that my staff is taking note of this, and I will definitely review this action by the court. I do sit on the Education and Workforce Committee in the House, and and I do care deeply about privacy rights, so what you're describing is disturbing, and we'll take a look at it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
City of Banning.
Yes.
I do have a couple of questions for you going back to the drought.
Sure.
First, when you communicated with the State Water Board, did they give any kind of response or say they were going to respond or look into it at all on that?
I'm not aware of their response back. I think we sent the letter out, I'm not sure, I think a couple months ago or a month ago, so I don't know. I'm not aware that we've received a response yet. I can get back to you on what they have said.
Okay.
Great.
And then my second question is, on the federal level, I know there's been a lot of talk about the drought for the western states. Is there any update on that?
As far as legislation?
Yes.
There's a number of bills before the House, and I'm keeping a close watch on them. There's some talk about reauthorizing the Desalinization Act and $600 million for storage projects, and but some of this, and it includes water smart funding. I mean, I think there's serious talk about these things, but I'm also concerned about the final piece of legislation and what it also contains, and making sure that it addresses our needs here in the Inland Empire.
Do you think there'll be any decisions or any votes made this year?
On water, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, this is a tough Congress, but we did some things that I didn't think we were going to do. Like we reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. President Obama himself called that a Christmas miracle. And believe it or not, we actually returned a lot of authority back to state and local school boards. We actually got the federal. This is a case where I agreed with the Republicans, that the federal government had gotten too heavy-handed with regulation and had usurped the role of states and local governments. So you see, and it was kind of an amazing confluence, and it was the case where a classic compromise, the House passed a far more harsh bill than I could support. But when they had a pre-conference meeting, they reconciled what came out of the House and Senate, and essentially came out with a bill that most of us end up supporting. Medicare reimbursement rates have been a bane in the side of our Medicare providers every year. So the Congress has surprised me in terms of what we actually do come together on. I wouldn't discount that we get together on water, although this is an election. I mean, it's the crazy season, right? But water's water. I just came back from Flint, Michigan, and very thankful that we have great water people here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? I don't see anyone else in the queue.
Just one more.
Yes, Supervisor Ashley.
Yes, do you hear, I know Senator Feinstein has a water bill that's
Yes.
going through the Senate. It looks like with bipartisan support. And then there's already been a water bill passed by the House of Representatives,
Yeah.
which is a little bit different, but, they both have the same aim, different one. But the idea of the Feinstein bill would come, and then, again, they'll be
The
reconciled
little
the bills.
conference, yeah.
The problem, I'm going to point out the problem, everybody, is, the Feinstein pulled this big chart up. This chart shows the pumping done this year. We've had heavy rains this year, and we pumped less water from the Delta, San Luis Reservoir, to Southern California we did last year when there's no rain. And the reason is because of the operations of the pumps, and there's not, and there's good science is being used. It's more or less the whim of the operator and what it is, and they're trying to sort of come up with a better way of doing that. And they're coming at it from two different directions, but they'll eventually reconcile that bill. So I was wondering if she was just starting her bill a couple of weeks ago. We were there and we visited you, and thank you very much.
Yes.
For receiving us.
Well, that was the bill I was talking to Councilwoman Franklin. I wasn't sure if you were a mayor or not. So that was the bill I was talking about, the legislation. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. I'm a little concerned about some of the other provisions. But hopefully it's going to come out like I saw with the education bill, that
Right.
it will come to a final piece of legislation that I can support. And I'm hopeful that it will happen, but we'll see.
It looks like there's a lot of bipartisan support in the Senate for that bill. The chairman of the committee is apparently getting behind it. The Republican chairman.
I will caution you that there does seem to be some provisions in there which look like maybe a giveaway to the Central Valley, and it doesn't really help us. I mean, I'm not against the Central Valley, and I think ag does comprise a good 10% of our state's product, but I think we got to be real careful about what's in the final bill.
Yeah, that's where the reconciliation can
Yeah,
solve a lot of those problems.
Desalination's in it. The desalination's in it. The storage projects, $600 million for storage. These are all things we need, and more
Better
funding for the
operation
watershed
criteria
program.
for the pumps.
That's right.
Yeah.
So those are good things, but I'm a little concerned about some of the other things. I don't want them to be poison pills, but
Well, sometimes you just got to swallow the pill.
sometimes that's the art of
Being
this.
in
That's the
order
art
to
of this
save yourself.
business of what
Yeah.
I mean. You're a legislator like I am, and sometimes you got to make that
Right.
choice.
Well, I hope it's a choice that it's easy to make.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else in the queue, sir, so I want to thank you for supporting the 41st District and taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with us.
Oh, my pleasure. And I thank you all for the work that you do. And really, the best of all worlds, I'm here to support you. I mean, you're doing the heavy lifting really here at the local level. So thank you so much, and thank you for the work you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next we have on the agenda item 6B, the Hero Program Activities Update. And this will be given by my second favorite Marine, Barbara Spoonhour.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. I'm Barbara Spoonhour, Director of Energy and Environmental Programs. The HERO program provides financing for residential and commercial energy-efficient water conservation and renewable energy projects. And then that financing is paid back through the property tax bill. I do have a correction to my staff report today, and that is to add the cities of Cotati, Moore Park, and Morro Bay as accepting by the committee as associate members of WRCOG. Those cities took action after our agenda was posted. After today's action of holding a public hearing, accepting the updated program report, and accepting new associate members, there will be 307 jurisdictions that are participating in the California HERO program. I want to provide you with an update of activities as well as then show you numbers associated with WRCOG and the California HERO program. Since May 1st of 2013, we have been tracking as part of our consumer protections our consumer satisfaction for the HERO program. To date, we've received 155,876 applications. Of those, 99.64% of the property owners, or 155,314, have had no complaints with the program. We have had 0.13%, or 198 customers, who have voiced what we consider a major complaint. And when we say major complaint, we're talking about complaints against contractors because of their workmanship or information that's been provided to them by the contractors. In addition, we have what is considered minor complaints, and these are complaints from property owners not understanding what their terms are of their assessment contract, or their assessment on the property tax came in higher than what they had originally expected. And when we look at those numbers, it's been 0.23% or 364 property owners. Currently, we only have one major outstanding complaint at this time. From January 2012 through today, there have been over 29,000 applications accepted in the WRCOG subregion, with over 18,000 projects completed for over $348 million. This equates to annual numbers of $603 million in economic impact, nearly 3,000 jobs, 716,000 tons of greenhouse gas reductions, and over 263 gigawatt hours of energy saved annually just in our subregion. When looking at the California HERO program from January 2012 through today, we have over 45,000 applications being submitted, with over 17,600 projects being completed for over $523 million. This equates again to over $905 million in economic impact, 4,440 jobs, 877,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions reduced, and over 325 gigawatt hours of energy saved. I've provided a copy of your individual jurisdiction snapshots within your committee folders today, and I did want to for the county unincorporated, I am working with Renovate to dissect the county unincorporated area so that we'll be able to provide you with district-specific information in the future. As part of the program update, an updated Exhibit B of the California HERO program report has been included as an attachment to the staff report. The map includes the jurisdictions that are included in today's public hearing. These include the cities of Dos Palos, Justine, King City, Sacramento, and Santa Clara, as well as the towns of Atherton and Colma and the county of San Joaquin. Once the public hearing is concluded, I am asking the Executive Committee to adopt Resolution 06-16, formalizing these jurisdictions into the California HERO program. I am also asking the committee members to accept the following cities as associate members to WRCOG: Amador, Bishop, Chico, Ione, Jackson, Lindsay, Oroville, San Juan Bautista, San Luis Obispo, as well as the three cities I mentioned before, Catati, Moore Park, and Morro Bay. After the acceptance of the aforementioned cities, I am asking the committee members to adopt Resolution 07-16, setting these jurisdictions' public hearings for April 4th, 2016. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Munauer. I will open a public hearing at this time. Janice, is there anyone on the phone that requests to speak?
Do we have any callers online for the California HERO program? I hear none.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Are there any requests from the public to speak on this item? All right, before I close public hearing, is there anyone on the dais that wishes to speak on this item? I will close the public hearing at this time and bring it for the board to make a decision. It's a motion. This coaching thing that we have to do. Did you get the motion in a second?
No, sir.
Motion by
Wildemar, second by, thank you.
The two on my left that normally make the motions. Please vote.
City of Murrieta, I'm sorry, you stepped away. Would you like to vote on this item? Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
And that motion passes 21-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have a report from our League of Cities. Aaron Sassy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you for having me here today. Hope you had a nice weekend or staying dry today. I wanted to update you on just a couple of events that are coming up and then some legislative items. First, our next division dinner is March 14th, so it's coming up next Monday. The city of Temecula is hosting us. It'll be at Monte del Oro, winery, so it should be a good event. I want to encourage all of you to RSVP if you have not already done so. And then on April 1st, we're very excited for this. We will be having a Division Lobby 101 training for all of you, the rest of your electeds, and your city staff. This will be at Sun Lakes Country Club from 8 to noon. A flyer will be coming soon. But it's a really good day just to learn about the various rules that we have to follow in the legislative process, how to read a bill, some tips on being more effective for advocacy, how to testify, how to write a more effective letter. So definitely want to encourage all of you to participate in that. Just a couple of legislative items as well. There are some action alerts that I've sent out this week. One of them is AB 1707 by Assemblyman Linder. This is something we have serious concerns about relating to the CPRA. Basically, this bill would require all of your cities to not only list all of the documents, it would also require you to list any exempt documents. And we're very concerned that this could also release some data that's currently protected under HIPAA, the Firefighters Bill of Rights, the Police Bill of Rights as well. So if you haven't sent in a letter, I would definitely encourage you to do so, but also talk to Assemblyman Linder about this. It could be very costly for your cities and put a huge burden on your staff. A couple other bills. One, there is SB 897 by Senator Roth. This is a bill that we don't have a position on yet, but we do have some serious concerns. I did bring it up at the last executive committee meeting. This bill would extend the workers' comp period for your public safety employees from 1 year to 2 years. Right now, there is some discussions with the author's office on potentially amending it or maybe not setting it for a hearing. So I definitely want to encourage all of you to talk to Senator Roth. This could be very costly, not only for those of you that have your own police departments, but also for sheriff contracts. Another bill, there's two bills, SB 817 and AB 2277, but these are by Roth and Assemblywoman Melendez. These bills would bring back the funding for our 4 newest cities, so I definitely want to encourage all of you to support that. Letters, phone calls, they're still in the early stages, so there's no hearing set at this time, but just get your letters in for those. The AB 278, the district elections bill that we've been working on repeatedly for the last couple of years, is still moving forward. There is another measure that we are supporting, AB 2220 by Cooper. That bill, it would remove the population requirement, which would allow all cities to go to district elections by ordinance rather than by vote. So definitely want to support that bill and oppose AB 278 that would require district elections. Finally, right now you can do an application for our statewide league board. If any of you are interested in serving on the statewide league board, get your application in. I'll be sending that information out. But it's a really good opportunity just to have not only our regional voice heard, but your city voice heard, help make decisions with our policies, and any support we do for ballot initiatives. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions, but thank you for having me today.
Okay, we have a couple questions. Supervisor Ashley, was that from last time, or did you have a question this time? The board's not clearing. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Murrieta.
Quick question, and on Ross bill, what was the number?
897.
And is there a reason the league hasn't taken a stance on that, or are they just waiting for response on whether they would be willing to amend it? Clearly, this is going to be detrimental financially to cities and counties.
It's really a politics issue. They're just trying to hold off until at least there's a hearing set. We're hoping that there won't be a hearing set for it. As soon as there is, though, if there haven't been any amendments, we will be sending an opposition letter.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Washington.
Aaron, that last piece of legislation that you mentioned, the two options for voting by district, Can you go over that a little slower?
Yeah, definitely. So, no problem. The first bill that we've been fighting, so we're opposed to, is AB 278. This requires cities with 100,000 population or more to go to district elections. There's been several lawsuits. I know most recently Wildemar and Hemet have been threatened to be sued to go to district elections. Obviously, they're well below that population cap. So and Rancho Cucamonga also got that letter recently as well. So there is legislation that's gone forward that allows them to go to districts by ordinance, but there was a cap that would say 100,000 population or less. So this bill would remove the cap, so any city could go to districts by ordinance rather than by vote.
Okay. I think I understand.
All right, I don't see anybody else in the queue. Aaron, thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have item 6D, and this is a transportation activities update given by our director, Christopher Gray, who's still here.
Still here. Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to be presenting a transportation update, a few new items for you, as well as a review of some work that we've been doing recently. First of all, I want to just tell you that we continue to work on the Nexus study. We are doing some of the technical updates. We've also been coordinating with SCAG to get some new land use forecasts, and we are still on schedule to be releasing a draft study in the late summer, early fall. We have selected a consultant to perform our analysis of our fee comparison study. As many of you recall through some of our other committees, this is a comparison of all the fees charged on new development throughout the WRCOG region, as well as a comparison of fees charged by adjacent jurisdictions. We interviewed 3 firms, David Tausig, Economic Planning Systems, and the UCR School of Business Administration. The selection panel, which was composed of representatives of WRCOG, one of the water districts, City of Riverside, as well as the City of Wildemar, selected EPS. So I'll be asking you to take action to approve a contract with them. We want to talk a little bit more about what they're actually going to be doing now that we will be initiating that work. We will do a comparison of all the different development fees charged in new development. We'll also be looking at factors which affect economic development, for example, land valuation, interest rates, other issues. So this becomes part of development cost and economics. We'll also be looking at what are the economic benefits of transportation. We will be doing a series of meetings with stakeholders, members of the development community, city staff, and the like. And part of the reason we selected EPS was they have done a very similar study in the San Joaquin Valley and are currently doing similar work in the Coachella Valley. So they bring a broad depth of experience in this specific issue. I want to briefly update you on some activities WRCOG's been doing related to SB 743. This is the state legislation which mandates the use of vehicle miles traveled and an alternative transportation metric. WRCOG participated in a workshop with OPR and representatives of the legal community to talk about this. We're expecting the state to come out with some guidelines. They've come out with updated guidelines. And this may be implemented, take effect roughly early 2017. We were told by the state that there's likely to be at least a 2-year grace period to start. So for the foreseeable future, we'll be looking at really a business usual as far as transportation goes. But in terms of what we are doing at WRCOG is we're looking for ways to help our jurisdictions. We realize this is, for many jurisdictions, very challenging and a difficult difference in how they typically do business. So we are looking at funding a series of technical efforts the COG can undertake. This would include, but not be limited to, developing a new travel demand model, developing forecasting tools for the jurisdictions, developing some sample guidelines, and also collecting localized data. The idea is that we're going to help the jurisdictions implement this rather than let them figure it out on their own. So now I'm going to turn things over to Daniel Ramirez, who's a member of our staff, who's going to talk about our TUMP annual report. So I'm going to welcome Daniel up, and when he's done, we'll bring it back for your action on the EPS contract.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Daniel Ramirez Cornejo, staff analyst with the Transportation Department, and I will be presenting the 2015 TUMP annual report. The annual report provides a review of revenue collection by jurisdiction for fiscal year 2014-2015 and since program inception. The report documents expenditures to ensure that TUMF is being expended as required by the Mitigation Fee Act. Also highlighted are projects underway and completed during the fiscal year. The TUMF program was established in 2003 to provide transportation and transit infrastructure that mitigate the impacts of new growth. Over the course of the program, TUMF will provide more than 1,200 new lane miles, improve 58 interchanges, construct 17 railroad grade separations, and provide more than $60 million for regional transit projects and the acquisition of sensitive habitat through the MSHCP program. Since 2003, the TUMF program has collected more than $642 million. Revenue for fiscal year 2014-2015 was $37.5 million, the highest since 2008. The report provides a breakdown of revenue by jurisdiction and TUMF zone for both fiscal year 2014-2015 and since program inception. Again, since 2003, the TUMF program has collected more than $642 million. Since 2003, the TUMF program has completed 85 projects, 14 are currently under construction, 12 are in either the right-of-way or engineering phase, and 24 are in the planning stages. The remaining slides are examples of projects underway or completed during the fiscal year. In the city of Menifee, we have the Newport Road I-215 interchange. 8.3 million TUMF is being contributed towards the project. The city of San Jacinto completed the Ramona Expressway widening project with 7.5 million TUMF. The Magnolia Avenue grade separation currently under construction, 10.3 million in TUMF has been programmed for the completion of the project. In the city of Banning, we have the Sunset Avenue grade separation, 3.2 million TUMF. Later this month, the county will begin construction on the Clinton Keith Road extension project, 17 million programmed for the project. 14 million in regional TUMF has been programmed for the Foothill Parkway extension in the city of Corona. And lastly, the Riverside Transit Agency completed the Moreno Valley Mall transfer station with 405,000 in TUMF. Additionally, staff has completed work on the 85 projects and counting, which highlights all 85 projects completed with TUMF contribution. Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation, and we have the requested action.
Thank you.
Daniel and I will be happy to answer any questions on our presentation. If not, we would like to move the item for consideration.
Okay. Do we have any questions? The item before us authorized WRCOG Executive Director to negotiate and enter into a professional service agreement with Economic and Planning Systems to provide a fee analysis study in an amount not to exceed $159,400. And I will take a motion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
question for you. Mr. Gray, a little bit about SB 743. When you say use of alternative metrics, I mean, exactly what, and I'm assuming that this is all tied into what we're getting ready to vote on and supporting staff on looking at SB 743 and how to respond to that. I mean, clearly, I'm opposed to the vehicle miles traveled, the VMT, in the way that they're looking at it. So exactly how are we addressing that, and how are we responding to the state?
So the approach that staff has taken is that there have been comment letters written by SCAG. There have been we were given a comment letter SCAG had written on SB 743. Our thought process has been that there are other folks in the state who are opposed to this effort. We have provided input to SCAG on a comment letter that they wrote asking to make some changes in the legislation. We think our resources are better spent towards preparing our jurisdictions to implement this, should it be implemented. We anticipate that some form of SB 743 will be implemented. So our perspective is to provide technical resources to our jurisdictions to implement this legislation. If the legislation at some point is deferred or delayed in any way, shape, or form, those resources may not be needed, but we think it's a better approach to prepare our jurisdictions when this legislation is implemented in some way, shape, or form.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, what we're doing is that we're voting today to move forward with this approach, expending the money to look at a way to implement this once it's passed at the state level.
No, I'm sorry. What we are asking you to do is to vote on the fee comparison study, which we are doing. That's a completely separate issue. What we've outlined for you is some initiatives that WRCOG staff will be taking over the next year to assist our jurisdictions with SB 743, so they're entirely separate.
Okay, that's what I was trying to be clear on. So they're two separate issues, and one we're voting on, one is an update just on the approach we're going to take with 743.
Yes, and as we move forward with SB 743, that will be part of our budget and the initiatives which staff will be undertaking next year, which we will share with you as we move into the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'll go take that motion now.
Motion by Murrieta.
Thank you. Second. Second by Waldemar. Please vote.
City of San Jacinto, please vote. Thank you, sir.
And that motion passes 19-0. Thank you, sir. All right, our next item is 6E, Beyond Framework Fund Program, and that's Andrea Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Howard. I'm a staff analyst here with WRCOG. I'm here with an update on the Beyond Framework Fund Program. Starting just briefly with a little bit of background on the program. Go to the next slide, please. The aim of Beyond is to enable our member jurisdictions to make progress towards the goals outlined in WRCOG's Economic Development and Sustainability Framework that was adopted in 2012. As many of you are likely aware, this was the result of a 2-year visioning exercise with our members that resulted in the identification of 6 priority areas for WRCOG and our members to either maintain or increase involvement in. That framework identifies those 6 goal areas that are highlighted here. Sorry. And then the funding for the program comes from carryover revenues from fiscal year 14-15 that this body voted to allocate $1.8 million to a local assistance fund for this first round of the project. And the slide in front of you shows the breakdown of that allocation among our member jurisdictions for this non-competitive funding program. To date, WRCOGS has received and approved 30 distinct project applications. That exceeds the number of member jurisdictions we have because few of our members elected to divide their funding between 2 or more projects. These projects each show support for at least one of the framework goal areas as required by the funding guidelines, but beyond that, there are a few restrictions which has enabled our members to utilize the funds in a way that best suits their needs and interests. The projects named here just give a brief synopsis of what kind of projects we have in the mix, and they go to further illustrate the versatility of Beyond funds and highlight the strengths of our members to creatively address common problems. So, for example, under the goal of supporting economic development, the City of Jurupa Valley has partnered with the Chamber of Commerce to support the retention and growth of local businesses. And under that same category, the City of Temecula will be providing job training to their underemployed special needs population. These projects and all 30 of the approved projects so far are summarized briefly in the attachment to today's agenda packet on page 157, I believe. This is just an updated timeline to show you the next milestones for Beyond. We do anticipate that all of the projects, including those that have not yet been approved, will be completed within our originally budgeted 18-month time frame. So we will be finished with all of them by no later than July of 2017. Because this is a pilot round of the project, we are very diligent in collecting our own lessons learned internally and welcome feedback from our committee members, and we'll also be soliciting it from the project administrators through our biannual reporting documents. That concludes my report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? I just want to make a comment. I was looking at some of the projects, a lot of emphasis on kids' education. So I commend the cities for their work, and I'm excited about the next round. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have a report from our Technical Advisory Committee Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. In the February City Manager TAC meeting, we did have a pretty lengthy discussion about homelessness. We had County DPSS come in, and we spent time as a city manager group talking about best practices and sharing information back and forth. I saw earlier today, and Aaron, the League of California Cities was putting out basically a webinar in the next couple of weeks too, and so there's a lot of talk about homelessness. I just want everybody to know that your city managers are working together. We're sharing best information, and we actually went over a case study with Harupa Valley and what they did with a recent homeless camp, and so it's an issue that's facing all of us, and we're doing our best to make sure that we're sharing best practices in that. So I just wanted to let the group know that, and that's all I have today, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have a report from our committee representatives, SCAG. Anyone from SCAG? We'll start with Murrieta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last meeting last Thursday, we had taken comments in regards to the RTP SCS and looking at the Regional Transportation Plan. And looking at those comments, there were quite a few staff at SCAG is taking that information and putting it into basically coming back to us, where we will be looking at the RTP again on the 24th. Additional comments will be taken, and I believe on the 29th they'll have everything completed on the 29th, and then it comes back to the regional to the committee to move it forward on April 8th. And it was a good discussion. There was a lot of information, but if again, the time frame to submit comments has come and gone. But if you would like to speak, you can at a SCAG meeting on the 8th. So,
okay, thank you. Banning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also for SCAG, I'd like to just re-announce the General Assembly is coming on May the 5th and 6th, and every city is invited to participate. So I just wanted to remind people, hopefully, every city will be represented.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. During SCAG's presentation of the RTP, it was reported by staff that there were numerous comments made in regards to the level of anticipated or forecast activity at LAX. And I had to comment that I continue to believe that comes at the expense of Ontario Airport and at the expense of economic development in this region. The response as to how they proposed to address the issues that were raised, I felt to be somewhat inadequate. I shared my position on that also with Hassan. I'm hoping as we move forward that we as a region continue to push for and support a return to the level of service that we have seen in the past in Ontario and what we know it's capable of and what it provides not only by way of convenience for the region of Southern California and transportation, but also the economic development opportunities that it presents for all of us in this region. It's a much-needed resource, and I think we ought to all be letting everyone know as a part of SCAG how we feel about that issue. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Air Quality Management District, Willamar.
Sure. If everyone had a second to go back, if they saw item 5H, might be something some cities might want to look at again. 5H is a report from Ruth Ann Taylorberger, who's my board assistant, and specifically there's some items in there which are monies that AQMD had in other cities and other jurisdictions. Those jurisdictions didn't use those monies, so we made sure that it got opened up to other areas, including Western Riverside County. There's $236,000 available for electric vehicle chargers, up to $42,000 per site. There's money for cordless electric lawnmowers or handheld landscaping equipment, and then also for the purchase of commercial electric lawnmowers, that's about $150,000. So these are all monies that were programmed, didn't get spent, and now we're opening up to other areas. So I wanted to throw that out there and make sure everybody knew that those were available to our local cities and jurisdictions, as well as nonprofits for the first two. Beyond that, SCAG had a very exciting meeting on Friday. We had a couple different votes that were very interesting. The first one is we received a couple letters of dissatisfaction from CARB and also from the Senate Environmental Quality Committee. They did not like the way the board voted back in December for the reclaim program, and we were asked to reconsider those items, and the governing board overwhelmingly decided not to reconsider that item. We also had a little bit more excitement in the boardroom following that. We had a vote for our governing board decided to terminate Barry Wallerstein, our CEO. So we have a temporary person, that's Michael O'Kelly. He's our CFO, and he's taken over at this time, and we're starting the search for a new CEO. So it's a little minor things going on at AQMD.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that had a report? Okay. Next, we have our report from our executive director.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Just a couple things to report on. One, we were thrilled to receive an award from the Inland Empire Economic Partnership for the 2015 Public Partner of the Year Award, and we were also extremely thrilled that that award was presented to us by our own supervisor, Ashley. So it was sort of a double thrill to get the award and also have it presented to us by him. I wasn't really supposed to announce this. I just saw this this morning that this is embargoed until tomorrow. But so there's a strong rumor circulating that WRCOG will be receiving an award from the Environmental Protection Agency in Seattle this week for innovative partnerships as it pertains to the HERO program. So that's something that rumor has it we're potentially very excited about receiving that award at the national level. Also, wanted to announce that we have secured our speaker for our 25th Annual General Assembly, which will be held on June 23rd, 2016. Of course, Morongo will be our host again. There's no better place to hold the event, and there's no better host than Morongo. And our speaker this year is providing an international perspective. That's the former Prime Minister of Australia by the name of Julia Gillard. And so we're really thrilled to have her coming overseas to meet with us and you all on the 23rd. So make sure that you put that down on your schedule to attend. It's our 25th, so we're going to hope to make it a fantastic event, given the fact it's a quarter century. And then just one other thing I wanted to mention. I wanted to introduce a couple of new staff that I think are still with us in the audience. One, Dolores Sanchez Vadillo is here. Dolores is working with us on our solid waste used oil programs. And then also joining us today is Cherish Latchman. There she is over there kind of on the left hiding. She's joining us with their HERO program, and as Barbara mentioned, the statewide program. And if you can imagine 155,000 applications that have come in, there's a lot of paper to go through. So we're thrilled to have Cherish on board and also Dolores. So these folks are helping us as we grow our programs. And remember, we lost 4 people in the last year due to retirements and people moving on. So we're fortunate to have replaced 1. So far, Chris makes 2, and then Cherish is just a great addition to a program that's growing. So welcome to those 2 new staff. Then that completes my report.
Thank you, sir. Any items for future agendas? Murietta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I appreciate Mr. Gray's presentation this afternoon, I would like to have a discussion about SB 743 and the direction that we are going, and not waiting further on down the road to have it come back and maybe take more of a board position on 743. Vehicle miles traveled is going to be a very hotly debated issue. While it may come to fruition, more than likely will, there are going to be some initiatives that are being pushed forward, if that's going to be the case, to remove gas tax in the state of California. And so there's going to be some different discussions on that item. And as we see more taxes coming to California at the county and the state level, I'd like to have a discussion about 743 and we as a board what direction we'd like to take.
Okay. Would you like that on the April agenda, or because the next admin and finance is this Wednesday, we can't have it on that agenda?
No, I think it should go to the admin and finance first and then come back to the full board, if that would be all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Clarifying. Okay. Any other future agendas? Okay. Any general announcements? Banning. Microphone.
I'm sorry, it's only taken us 20 years, but we are going to have a ribbon cutting for our Sunset Grace separation Thursday, 10 o'clock. Everyone's invited, rain or shine.
Okay, good.
Be there.
River Valley.
What is it with those mics? I just wanted to announce that we had the pleasure in Hoop Valley of having a joint city council meeting with the city of Riverside. And we had, as a new city, of course, had never done that before. Riverside was the city that actually initiated it. And our city manager took the ball and ran with it. And I just highly encourage any of you that have cities that border you, which we all do, to try to organize something like that, because it was just, we got to meet each other face to face. Of course, the agenda is set because of the Brown Act, and there were 3 issues chosen. One was the homeless situation. The other was recreational opportunities along the Santa Ana River. And the third was the traffic issues that we have on the bridges that connect our 2 cities. And it just was, we held it at Crestmore Manor, which is the Riverside County Parks headquarters, had a full room and a lot of just goodwill, smiling faces. We had quite a few public comments. There were concerns given, but everyone was extremely respectful. And I can't say enough about it. I would highly recommend the outreach between cities to do that on, maybe even an annual basis. But I know we all have so many meetings, but it was very profitable. So I just wanted to share that, and to thank the City of Riverside.
Okay. Thank you from our oldest city and our youngest city. Right? That was you. That's okay. It went over me.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I said it from our oldest city and our youngest city.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Trying to point out a fact. It just fell silent. Anyway, all right. No other comments. Our next meeting for the Exec Committee is scheduled for Monday, April 4, 2016 at 1400 in this chamber. Meeting's adjourned.